All right. Welcome. It's a little crazy, and I'm David Magee, and with me is Phoebe Goodwin. I called you on the first episode. I called you out as 21 years old because that's what I'd heard at one time. But, you know, time changes. I think I just learned that's not even true anymore.
I'm 22 now,
okay,
David.
I missed that.
I'm
I think you were 22 when I called you that. I'm sorry. Our 22-year-old phenom, journalism graduate recently from the University of Mississippi. I'll get that age right.
It's
so,
okay.
Yeah.
Hey, it takes a little time. And speaking of birthdays, today's a big day, David.
Yes.
Sort of like a birthday.
It
Birth
is.
of a child.
Yeah.
Your book is out. A Little Crazy is finally out.
Yeah, can you believe it?
I
That kind of
can't.
gives me both. I got chill bumps when you said that, but also tears of fear came to my eyes.
Oh, no.
Yeah, like I need to be honest. Anybody that's listening that has written a book, or if you have friends that have written a book or produced a movie, it's kind of terrifying. It's exciting. So what happens, it's a 2-year process or more. You have to work with your agent to get a proposal, and then you go get a publisher, and then you lock yourself away. So not this summer, but the previous summer, I locked myself away for 4 months.
Right.
And nobody, I can't really talk to anybody. I'm in an emotional different spot. My head's in this book because it's a memoir. It's about my life. It's about finding purpose. It's what a lot of men and humans face of how do I find myself, make a difference in this world, you know. So you kind of can go to both a dark place and exhilarating place. Well, the thing that happens in book writing is 90+% of books underwhelm author expectations in sales.
Right.
They just do. A lot of books just don't succeed that well. And I know a lot of writers who they look forward to their publication date. It gets here. They're all excited. They say, cheers, happy birthday, book. And then it's like, uh-oh.
What's going on?
It never can sell or succeed, and the critics pan it. And mine's so revealing. I think if the critics pan it, I've learned to be tougher skinned, but it might hurt my feelings.
Hey. Well, you wrote a book, and that's more than most people can say.
I did.
And we can celebrate that it's finally out today.
And two things I'll say before we get into the episode. Number one, it's fun that the book is just out today, September 17th. This is the birthday of it. It created this podcast.
It did.
Because the book is called A Little Crazy, a memoir of finding purpose and joy amid the madness. This podcast, A Little Crazy, that landed on the That Sounds Fun network, it came from that. And the other surprise is it's been optioned for a movie. My book, A Little Crazy, has been optioned for a movie.
Wow.
And, you know, who knows if that ever gets made, but I'll panic about that later.
We'll panic
but so
about
it's
it
led
later.
to a podcast. It's been optioned for a movie. And so, you know, if you're ready, I'm ready. We'll come along on this episode, dig
Let's
in
do
and
it.
talk about it, how the creative process, and a little bit about the book and more.
Hey, it's a little crazy.
It is definitely a little crazy. Here we go.
All right, David, we're back, and today is so exciting because your book, A Little Crazy, a memoir about finding purpose and joy amid the madness, is finally out. And so I thought there was no better topic to discuss today than writing. So you've always been a writer, you've always loved writing, but you failed your high school English class. So what happened there?
Yeah,
what
well,
happened there?
and let me be clear. I have always been a writer. I really have since I failed that English class. But I've only been able to really claim myself as a decent writer for years. I would get book contracts. I would get deals, but I never felt great about them. I think I was an apprentice. It's like a musician or something. You're kind of learning the instrument, and then you're learning your sound. Like, what's my sound? Like William Faulkner. I live across from Faulkner's house, okay? And I'm not comparing myself to Faulkner. I just live across from his house. Let's be clear.
Let's be clear here.
Let's be clear. But I am comparing myself in one way. In that if you study Faulkner, before he became Faulkner as we know it, what he did is he adopted a new writing style. He found his voice. It was a very black and white period in the late 40s and 50s. Everything was black and white. Race, economics, you know, a lot of way feels like we're trending back to some of those ways now where everything's tried to be made black and white. But he felt like it was so black and white, he decided he would write in this very complicated gray matter space, that just write in this complicated way to really reveal how people were trying to see it in these simple tones. But he started his career out as a writer doing mainstream screenplays, and his first writings and novels and things were very commercial and mainstream. and it did not work so well for him.
Right.
He found some success. I mean, he could go to Hollywood and get a screenplay, but he was just another writer.
Right.
Well, that's the way it was for me. I got book deals from HarperCollins, Penguin, Random House. Now they're together, Penguin, Random House, but they were separate at the time. But I didn't feel good about any of it. And so it's really only now with a book like A Little Crazy and Dear William before that, that I began to find my voice. But here's the thing. We need to give a shout out. Anybody that's listening that's had a teacher you love,
Mm-hmm.
or your children have had a teacher that made an impact in their life. I need to tell you that story about failing English. So I failed 10th grade English, and everybody in my world is giving up on me largely. I'm going through a hard time at home. I changed schools out of desperation.
Mm-hmm.
I show up at this new school, Miss Trotter calls me up. She gives in a writing assignment on basketball, thinking maybe I can connect with this young man. Other teachers have written me off, decided I'm lazy, whatever. She calls me up, and I'm thinking I'm in trouble, and she says, young man, you can really write. And I end up having Miss Trotter in English for 2 years, and I struggle in her class. I don't make the best grades. But she continually tells me, you have talent, young man. You can really write. And she invests in me, meeting with me after class, trying to encourage me to be a writer, and never once letting me feel bad that I was struggling still in other ways within the class. She kept trying to cultivate me to flourish in this one area where I had some focus and talent.
Right.
And I remember her telling me, one day you'll do something. And when my book, Dear William, came out, Phoebe, she came to one of my book events to hear me speak. And she's in her 80s now, and she never had children. And, she's walking with a cane. And she's that kind of teacher that's like, she had the glasses over her nose and sits so upright. She never had a hair out of place, never had a hair out of place. And all the other students were scared of her, and we're meeting afterwards, and she says, this book, David, this book, I knew you had this in you. And we're talking a little while later, and she said, I expect we can do this now. She never had children, and I was this adopted child, and I think there was just something spiritual or cosmic about our relationship. And she's in her 80s, and the student and teacher, and she's like, I love you. I guess we can do this now. And I said, oh, Miss Trotter, I love you too.
Right.
I just have so much love for her, and I have so much love for teachers and mentors and people who invest. And it's easy to write someone off.
Absolutely.
It's easy to write them off. And so as I sit here today on the birth date of a book, my memoir, A Little Crazy, it is a little bit crazy of a journey because I shouldn't be a writer, meaning I should have been. I was called to be. I was created to be. But when things started happening in my life without the right people intervening and helping me get along that journey, I'm not sitting here today talking about a book that's created a podcast that's been optioned for a movie. And look, it may do well, it may not. Memoirs are hard to sell. I don't know. And it's a little scary to reveal so much about yourself and put it out there. What gave me chill bumps when you said it, I got chill bumps for Miss Trotter, the teacher. I got chill bumps for every mentor, for everybody who's been a little bit crazy and believed, I can do this. I can do this. I can be a writer. You all think I can't be. I believe I can.
Right.
I know I failed English, but I'm not a failure.
Right. So what would you say her voice of encouragement did for you as a 16-year-old who didn't really have much going for him, didn't feel like a fit in his family? There's this one person who said, you can do it. What did that do for you, and how did that change your view of actually becoming a writer?
The saying goes about young people, and we say it about young people, but let's be clear. It's all of us. Young people need to be seen and heard.
Right.
But don't we all? Some of us more than others. I used to be more so. I'm less so now. But I mean, I'm the guy sitting here putting out a book, hoping people buy it and read it. And what it did for me, it validated me as a human. Otherwise, I'll be honest. I write about in this book having some really dark times in high school, and particularly in ninth grade. I write about receiving this Best All Around award, but then going home and thinking, I mentioned that on our first episode, thinking, I don't even know if I can live to the next day. And I was shutting down all around, and that's not uncommon. I mean, a lot that happens to a lot of people. And the support system, it doesn't take a miracle. It takes somebody seeing you and validating you and letting you know there is something inside of you that I see that has value to me and has value to others.
Right.
And I believe that then. It did not fix everything overnight. But Miss Trotter she and her husband, who's been dead for some years now, they would show up at, say, some football games, and she would let me know she was coming, and she would let me know after the game something she saw. There was an investment. I'm paying attention.
Yeah. And I think we're all looking for someone looking for us.
Yeah.
And so when you finally found that person in Miss Trotter, things changed.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, it wasn't overnight, but they did change. And thinking back, you wouldn't be where you were without her seeing you.
Yeah, that's a great line. I mean, we're all looking for someone looking for us. And I'm that person in a lot of things I do, because I write a lot in this memoir, A Little Crazy, about the realization. It's this journey of me trying to find myself girded in faith, in confidence in myself. How am I going to chase and fulfill my passion to make a difference in the world, to make others' lives better? How can I even do that if I can't really better take care of myself? So I'm fighting to better manage myself, to better manage my emotions, so I can be a stronger person to give more on this earth to others. And I write a lot in the book about coming to this revelation. When I was younger, I think I didn't understand how much I needed to give to others, but how much I needed others' help in my journey. It is about others. And I don't think, I know we can't do it alone. And I probably tried for too long. And a lot of the things I've achieved in recent years has been because I have had my eyes open for people looking for me as I'm looking for them, to where we can align and unite and really move a proverbial mountain. And, that's been a big difference in this journey of how I'm able to get here. I think it's how I've become a better writer, and I can write a book like this. I mean, there's some things in here that I've had to hold my breath and just see how the world takes them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's scary, and even about other people, about some of my family who really trust me to tell stories about some other relationships that I've had professionally and personally with other people, and kind of some crazy things that we've been able to get out in the world and do and accomplish despite some of the longest odds. And it's funny to trace it back all the way to Miss Trotter and think, what if that person never intervenes in my life? What if? And so many of us can say that story. What if that person never intervenes? We're not sitting here, and none of the crazy things I write about in this memoir ever happen.
Right. And it's always, always worth it to see the people around you. You never know the difference it's going to make. And in a way, you found that writing did take care of yourself. That was a way you began to take care of yourself and began to heal through that journey. So what role did writing play in healing from the loss of your son to the redemption of your marriage and family to now?
Everybody should write. Everybody should write. And the research is very clear on that. The research shows that expressive writing helps us heal. It's not just talk therapy with a therapist. Imagine if we had, when I go speak in schools a lot, sometimes they'll call me to the side, do you have any advice on what we can do to follow up with now that you've talked to our students about mental health and substance misuse? I'm like, get in English class. It's not the counseling. Get in the English class and assign them expressive writing because it's free. They don't have to have a counselor. It's accessible to everybody. The research is so clear that expressive writing, and listen, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to write a book like me because writing a book is hard, and I don't know that I recommend it to everybody. It can put you in an emotionally tough place, even though it is healing, because it is hard, and there, you can feel a lot of rejection of how it's received in the marketplace. But for somebody like me writing, I'm trained to kind of go the book length, and so I can handle all of those feelings that come with it. And so I'm able to get the full throttle benefit of expressive writing. And so there's a couple of lines I write in A Little Crazy that I kind of realized what's happening. At one point, I write a line in the book because I'm writing about being a little crazy and trying to make sense of this status quo normal world, which, by the way, is not normal. It just pretends it is, and we're all trying to pretend we're not crazy. It's all backwards. That's the book. You know, it's all backwards.
No one is normal.
Nobody's normal. And the world is certainly not, but we're all trying to prove that we are, which is kind of crazy. And that's what the book is about. It is a little crazy. And so I write a line in the book at one point about how incredible it is that how normal I feel writing about my abnormality. And then there's another point in the book where I write about how I can see in my life as I write what I'd yet to understand. In other words, I'm understanding myself as it unfolds in the page. And I think a lot of times we think in memoir writing and expressive writing, we think of the concept as, I can't put this on paper until I fully know and understand every single thing about myself. And then I'll let that marinate a while, and then I will bring that to the story. Now, certainly you want to be through your journey and be on a path to, you know, solid ground if you're going to write a book about it. But it is true that a lot of the things I was learning about myself, about where I'll go next in this journey that I'm on in helping others, and this journey on of helping myself, and where I'll spend my time and with who and how, unfolded as I'm writing this book. And even though I knew them, I would say they unfolded with considerably more clarity. And so I tell people, like, you don't have to be a writer to write a book. You can write journals. I know somebody that keeps a notepad by their bed and they make little notes. I know somebody else that uses their smartphone, their iPhone, and they go to the notes and they just keep thoughts and organizations. How I'm feeling today, they'll write, and when they process it and see it, they're essentially saying, am I posting a green light or a red light? And then they can kind of see associated feelings with it and the patterns around it. And it helps them to better understand themselves.
Absolutely.
So expressive writing is a gateway. And for me, writing a book about being a little crazy, if nothing else, if this memoir, look, I wrote it because I know men across this country need it, because they get to middle age and they're scared. They're pretending like they're in charge, sitting in the boardroom, or maybe they're not in a boardroom, but they're like, am I going to be alone when I'm older? Can I fulfill all my obligations to my family? I know I'm thriving professionally, but I actually don't like it, and I'm scared, and I would rather go camp in the wilderness. And how do I make sense of all of this? That's what this book is about. You know, it's like, what is our purpose, and how do we manage ourselves through all that we face and all the pressures we face to really decide and go after our purpose and be our healthier, best, most joyful selves. I hope that book reaches all those people. If not, the old saying that if you can only reach one person, well, I reached myself.
Right. Yes.
I reached myself.
And there's something so therapeutic about seeing your thoughts on a page and being like, they're no longer just mine. You know, they're on the paper, and there's something really, really cool about that. And it's free.
You know what? One of the more interesting things about writing a memoir is us memoirists, because this is my second one. Dear William was first, and now this one. And I've got a third one, depending on how this one goes, if a publisher will allow me a third one. What's interesting about writing a memoir? So think about this. I'm writing it, and as I said, it was about 1.5 years ago. I'm writing A Little Crazy. And for 4 months, I'm so deeply immersed in that. And it's very emotional. I can almost not even, first of all, I was a very happy person, but happy emotionally. I cried a lot because I'm reliving all these experiences.
Yeah.
And I'm writing about all these experiences from years before. So both the 4-month period is intense, and I'm reliving this intense, but sometimes joyful moments. There's plenty of joy in the book, believe me, plenty. But it's emotional. What happens is, and all memoirists and I, when we get together, we compare notes on this. You write it, and then a year and a half later, it comes out, and you go hit the world. And guess what happens? The world reads it, and it's your life, and it's your voice. And so, like, I've got a fabulous audiobook publisher for this book, Brilliance. They're a great audiobook publisher. They're an Amazon company, so you can go find the audiobook and listen to it, and I narrate that. Well, when people hear that, it feels real time to them because I'm telling a story in real time.
Right.
And we memoirists face, number one, we went through this emotional time, then we put it away, then we have to go relive it. Because the audience is just coming to it, and it's real time to them. And in reality, we're in a different place in our life. Every memoirist I've ever talked to faces that same thing. And look, it's joyful because people are only wanting to talk about it because they just read it. An example is, and I think I shared this with you, yesterday, I'm contacted by somebody who just now read Dear William. Dear William came out in November of 2021.
Right.
A lot of things that happened in the book happened a decade before that.
Right.
He just read it, and he was consumed with, I can't breathe until I talk to him. Because he just read it. It was presence to him. So today is a day, as you note, it's a birthday. I'm giving birth to this book. I'm giving birth to reliving my life.
Right.
It's a scary and exciting day. It's like being 8 years old in the old days when they used to really have a high dive at the pool. We'd go to the old university pool at the University of Mississippi campus. They had like an Olympic high dive. And we were off that thing before 8, but let's say 6 or 7. And you'd think, oh, I want to do this. I want to do this. I'm absolutely terrified. I'm afraid my suit's going to ride up my back, or I'm going to land on my head, or I'll accidentally turn a flip. And you jump. And you do some of all of that.
Right. Wow. How cool. And what a strange feeling. It's like a highlight reel of some of your best and worst moments. So
some of your best
imagine.
and worst moments,
Yeah.
This one's interesting. There are some surprises in here that people don't know about, that they don't see coming. Like I have had it's so fun to finally be able to talk about this because I've had this incredible relationship, and I want to be clear, like it's when you have a relationship with somebody and you're trying to help them get sober, and only people who are in recovery or sober understand this. It's a fascinating relationship because it's closer than you normally would have with a man or a woman, or sometimes it's a young person, that it also is not close in other ways.
Right.
It's about that recovery, and it's only that.
It's only that.
Because you're just so at war to help them get sober. But to do that, you know them so well.
Right.
Because you're in the trenches with them. And so now I'll back up as I reveal who this person was, and a lot is written about in A Little Crazy. I had years before of where this relationship starts with a former Miss America who'd gone to Ole Miss with me and was 2 years older, Susan Aiken. And she was a bombshell. I mean, she was one of the most, she won Miss America in the year she won. 2/3 of America, you were bigger than a Super Bowl quarterback in those days. 2/3 of America stopped and everybody gathered around the television. And so, as I was beginning to struggle early in my addiction, and she was living in the same area, and I hadn't seen her since college, in like 2009, I find she's living in the same community I'm in, and she's really struggling. The problem is I didn't understand addiction. So she's like, help. I need help. And I was a storyteller, so I was like, hey, great. Well, let's go do a TV show or something about you. I can do that. And I did.
Yeah.
The only thing I knew back in the day, Phoebe, you remember, well, there's still reruns that run, but it was The Real World. It was the first reality show, the Blockbuster. And Boone and Murray was the production company that did that. I make a reel, I send it to Boone and Murray. I hadn't even been in TV production. Well, they want it. I'm like, man, I'm about to be a TV producer and I'm going to get Miss America back on her feet. I didn't understand addiction, though.
Right.
She was drowning. Guess who else was drowning? Me. We part ways. And the show, they want a show, but it doesn't happen because we're drowning. I go, my life turns around. I go on this incredible journey. And then a couple of years ago, I think, whatever happened to Miss America? And I go knocking on her door. And that story is revealed in this book, and it's remarkable.
It's a beautiful story.
I'm so proud of her, Phoebe. Like, she's going to be telling her story now. She's a warrior. She's had 4 decades of struggle, and she allowed me to write just like my family allows to write. And I'll tell anybody, when you read the book, it can feel a little revealing about her, but I write about myself in the same way. And I have her permission to do that. She said, I need to tell my story. And the only way to tell it, the only way to bring her back to the world, to tell her story of hope and healing, is to reveal a lot of what she'd faced and been through. So, it's a small part of the book, but stories like that are important because it's the journey of a storyteller fighting to change and improve their own life, but also changing and improving others' lives.
So when you write about these low points, these hard moments in your life, do you feel like getting them on the page out of your head is freeing, or do you feel like in a way you were kind of trapped again by those same thoughts? And because you write about every intrusive thought you had, and addiction, and drinking again, and sitting at that bar, and just the thoughts of, and the feelings in your mouth, and just these really tangible details of struggle, that's hard to enter back into as someone who is in recovery and is sober. What's the tension between healing and freedom?
Healing and revealing?
Healing and revealing, absolutely.
Serious tension.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you. You said something in there. You write about your intrusive thoughts. I think the reason this book is really a little crazy, which is why I and the publisher titled it A Little Crazy, is, and I appreciate that. What you hope when you write a book is that somebody gets it, and you and I have never discussed that. We've discussed a lot around the book, but we haven't discussed that. In truth, the entirety of the book is inside my head of intrusive thoughts, and me battling those to make sense out of them. And guess what? I do win.
Right.
I'm sitting here today because I've won. That doesn't mean the battle will be over forever. I can't predict forever, but I've won that. But I wrote a whole book. So like Dear William, okay, from a writer's perspective, it's this big sweeping family drama. Here's what we faced. Here's how we fought our way through it.
What we did. This is inside this dude's head. This is the crazy author, the crazy man who been working at a university, needs to prove he's not crazy, writing about his intrusive thoughts. And you know why I did it? Number one, because it's true. Number two, if there's anybody listening who doesn't battle intrusive thoughts in their head, report to me. Report to me. Go to our newsletter at alittlecrazy.com. Sign up for that, and there'll be a spot where you can send a message. Send it. I want to hear from you. We'll give you $1 million.
Do you know anybody that I'm not sure that human exists, but we're not really allowed to admit that because our intrusive thoughts at times are so uncomfortable. They're so uncomfortable because they will betray us. They can tell us sometimes how we think friends are maybe thinking about us or talking about us or doing something. And guess what? Actually, sometimes that's true. But then our intrusive thoughts interpret wrongly for us how we should react to that or how we should feel to that. Because the intrusive thought, it makes us think we should engage with that and we should feel.
Right.
When the reality is we have to know we cannot control anything others think about us. That's their business.
Mm-hmm.
But the intrusive thoughts will tarnish us on that if we allow them. And our intrusive thoughts. So I'll give you an example. Leading up to publication to this book, where I'm revealing myself and I'm writing about this way, had I not stopped, if I'm a drinker now, based on who I am emotionally and my chemistry and my fear about this book, I can tell you that if I were a drinker now, in the last couple of months, in this month leading up to this, my alcohol consumption would have gone way up. I promise you it would have. Because I would have been self-medicating my fear and my feelings that I will have to face. And some of the stuff, some people, you write about some people and they don't necessarily like it. I mean, Miss America, Susan, she said, I trust you to tell my story, and she knows it's gritty. And I said, it doesn't mean you will love it. And she said, I understand. My family the same way. They trust me. I say, you will love it in the result it gets, but we're not all going to love it in, it's just hard. And
Absolutely.
It's just hard. So, look, for me, it's no different than it is from these thoughts I reveal. I know I'm actually, they say to land something with a book, you have to write something that's relatable to everybody. The publishers, they don't know how to go market a book to tell everybody this is about the inside, innermost thoughts that race in everybody's head and trying to wrestle those. It's kind of hard to tell that to people what it really is, but I appreciate that from you. You put your finger on it. That's what this is about.
Right.
I'll go a whole chapter and it's all about these thoughts in my head and how do I wrestle them?
And I think the book almost reminds me of Van Gogh's self-portrait with his bandaged ear. Of this is my brokenness, and these are the parts of me that people don't show.
So one thing I will say on that, I love that. It's my bandaged ear portrait.
It is.
I don't foresee. So in the life arc of a writer, I wrote Dear William, and it was this family saga, and what it led to. And then here's this. It's like I owe myself and the reader a look inside my head because it's actually the prequel.
Yeah.
It's really what came first. And so I now published the prequel is inside my head of how I got myself back to even do that. But what's interesting in the arc of a writer, the next book, it's less of that. It's moving to more redeeming, wider-based relational fathers and sons. And so something that's freeing about this, I think, I don't need to write about being inside my head again. This book uses all of that. I don't have any more.
You put every ounce on the page.
I like if you want to get inside my head, you better go get a little crazy because I'm not coming.
Run out.
Yeah, the quill has run out. I'm not coming back for more. I mean,
Right.
it's like I know musicians are like, yeah, that was one of my early album songs. That style's done.
It's over.
It's
so do
done.
you feel free? Do you feel free, or do you feel healed in a way that you weren't expecting?
I do feel healed in a way I'm not expecting. People trust me because I will speak a truth.
Mm-hmm.
I see how they look at me differently, and that's very valuable. That means something to me because I was the opposite for a long time.
Right.
I would meet them first, and they would think they really liked me because I felt comfortable.
Right, but there were all these parts about you.
That was more complicated,
Right.
and then they'd invite me over, and I'd forget. Or invite me to speak, and I'd forget. I don't forget anything now. I'm the guy with a credit score of 850, and I'm looking at my app over and over, and if you invite me and it doesn't fit my schedule, I'm very confident to say, I really appreciate it, but no, thank you. I can stand up and speak for myself and say no and manage myself. It's freeing. It's incredibly freeing. I know how to manage myself now. And, my wife says I'm one of the more reliable people she knows. I have a lot of friends that say, tell me that. That's like the greatest compliment they can give me. I did not get that compliment. They would say things like, he's nice, he's friendly, he's personal. It was all false. It was a shield, an act, a deterrence to try to take your eyes off me. I couldn't look people in the eyes.
But now that, this book is out, and like we were saying, it's really every thought, good and bad, that you've had, and every experience, good and bad, that you've had. Now there's this beautiful redemption of, before you were this person everyone admired, but they didn't know.
Yeah.
And now you are this person people know and still admire. So there's this beauty of being known.
Not
and
everybody,
loved.
but I do appreciate
that. But there
that.
is a different kind of respect where there's,
even if they don't like me, I think there's more respect.
Absolutely.
I think there's more respect, and I'm confident to say that.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? People say, they'll get to a point and say, I don't care if they don't like me. But we all want to be liked. But the truth is, a lot of people are not going to like us. Mm-hmm. And I chased that for a lot of years. And I now invest my time in smaller numbers of relationships for higher payoffs of friends. And I'm okay with everybody not liking me. I'm okay with somebody giving a bad review of this book. I'm okay with somebody saying it's not that good.
Because it's true.
It's just true. And I have written truth, Phoebe, and I struggled, like a lot of people, to be able to speak truth. Mm-hmm. And that's the time I turned from a boy into a man. And that's really what this journey is about. And I think all of us, if you want to find freedom, if you want to find happiness, you really just need to work on speaking truth. And everybody will not like it. They do not have to like it. As I said earlier, what they think about us is their business.
Right.
But I will say, because I am human, that I will go through, even though this book has led to a podcast with a great network, even though it's been an option for a film, even though you're sitting across from me giving these compliments, because I'm writing about myself in ways that terrify me, I will go through from today at its publication onward. I will be more prone to cry. I will be more prone to feel vulnerable. I will be a little shakier. But when I say that, I say, don't worry about me. My shaky these days is really strong ground. Mm-hmm. I would just be a liar and fooling myself if I acted like birthing a book a memoir like this that is so revealing is easy. Mm-hmm. It's not.
Right. But it's worth it.
It's worth it. It's worth it. And what happens is, already more invitations come to get into more schools. Guess what I'm doing on schedule tonight? On schedule tonight, this podcast launches on September 17th. And on this evening, I'm invited to deliver the fall convocation address at the Honors College at the University of Mississippi.
Wow.
And I will talk about all of this to all of these Honors College students, and they invited the university, they've invited the Oxford community and others. Now that's incredible.
That is.
Do you know why it means so much more to me? My late son, William, was a member of that Honors College. And this will be hard for me to say, he made it. You have to maintain a certain grade point average, and it's a very rigorous demand, and he did maintain that grade point average. He got all the way through, and he loved it so much, but his addiction late in his college year was really beginning to take hold. He got all his coursework done. He made his grades. He had the 3.5 or higher GPA, but he couldn't get the thesis done. They gave him more time, but his addiction had taken hold. And I remember him trying to finish it, and he was like, Dad, you were right. You warned me that substances would eventually take more from me than they gave, and I can't finish this. He was on opiates early in that whole nightmare craze, and so he actually never got he graduated from Ole Miss in the university, but in Spanish, he never got his degree from the Honors College despite finishing all that. And it's so hard, but such a gift, because all this work we've done at the university He's been in there, as I said in this first episode, is a voice alongside me. He's been there. That's his thesis. He's been there, with me. And we've done this incredible work together and with so many stakeholders, and it will be beautiful, but it will be hard. It will be so hard. But what an honor to stand on that stage and speak.
Yeah. What an amazing full circle moment.
What a journey.
What a journey.
I just literally, sometimes you have to just look up and go, there's just a higher hand here. I would have been done. And I'm marching on a journey, and what's actually a little crazy, it's only begun. The things that we have in plan, the work that, I feel called to do, that I have in this nutty head, that I know is about to get done, we've only started. But how that happens, and I've learned to just be humble and say, look, it does take a village. How that happens is I need this book to be more successful. The last one got featured on a big national CBS piece, and that got me in more schools nationally. It's a movement. It's this bandwagon movement that people have to say, I believe in this. I believe in this, and I want to help this story grow and go. I want to tell others about it. I want to share it. And that's the only way it'll get done. But it's up to others. As a writer, all you can do is put your truth out there and see what happens.
Right.
It's a dice roll. I've rolled them. I've cast them. Here we go.
And happy birthday.
Happy birthday. It's a little crazy. We'll see what happens,
That's exciting. All right. Well, to finish today's episode, I thought it would be fun on the day of the release of A Little Crazy, your memoir, to look back at where you began as a writer. So when you were younger, do you remember, one of the first things you wrote?
Oh, hey, that's a good question. One of the first things I wrote, I think maybe I was in, wow, I haven't thought about that in a long time. I think I was maybe in the second or third grade, and we're learning about poetry. And, all you can do then is write in rhymes. And I remember bringing home to my parents so proud of this poem that I'd written. And it was something like, I had a fishy who lived in a dishy. The water dried up and the fishy got squishy. There you go, David Magee's Best. You cannot buy that online, however, or in bookstores, but that was my first writing. Second grade, David Magee's Best.
Well, hey, if you subscribe to the newsletter, maybe
Yes.
we'll get another edition of
There you
that
go.
first poem.
That's it. You can subscribe, but stick around. We're not done yet. Phoebe and I are headed to the back porch for a few minutes of conversation about our favorite books. We've talked about writing. We're going to tell you about some other writers and things that we love to read. See us on the back porch in just a blink. Thanks for sticking with us. We're back on the back porch. Phoebe, she's still here. We want to talk for a minute, Phoebe, about writers that we like. First, I have to share this about one of my favorite writers. This was a great book, by the way. I'm not saying it's my favorite book, but writers, they have so much to offer us. So here's something that a writer taught me. So when I write my memoir, A Little Crazy, or in Dear William, you'll notice I have flashbacks to childhood. I write about childhood a lot. I'm really interested in people writing about, My Dog Skip from Willie Morris.
Yeah.
This young lady that I met named Kendra Allen, she wrote a memoir that came out 2 years ago called Fruit Punch. And she wrote this whole book. It's really excellent. She wrote this whole memoir from an early teen girl's perspective within her family. And she's using vernacular in her African-American culture and in this family. And it's writing about making sense in family in her life and trying to get out, but trying to also escape the hard parts of that. And I was a part of a literary panel a couple of years ago with her, and she was on it, and somebody asked her from the audience. They were like, Ms. Allen, you write from a young person, a child's perspective in your new memoir, and I've looked back at your poetry, and you do that a lot. You either have a child in the story, and she, Kendra, Ms. Allen, kind of leaned into the microphone, and she said, well, smiled, and she's like, what I think is, if there's no child in the story, is it really even a story at all? I've never been able to stop thinking about that. So I've adapted that. That's how literature can affect life. Now, I was already somebody, like I'd already written Dear William at that point. That's why I was on the panel. And I'd written about childhood. So obviously I'm intrigued by that concept. But that's what books and literature and reading can do, is they can really help us think. Because when I heard her say that, even though I tended to lean and think that way, I had never thought about it so provocatively. If there's not a child in the story, is it even a story at all? And so what I've done, Phoebe, is I've been able to, in the last 2 years since she said that, I've been able to adapt it even to business and a lot of things that I do. I'm really not interested in a project. I'm not interested in work. If there's no child in the story, I'm not interested.
Right.
And what I mean by that is, let's say it's community work. Well, it doesn't have to be on a top line, or even writing. It doesn't have to be on a top line. But if it's not benefiting a child, if there's not a sub-character plot of a child, if this can't benefit youth, if it can't benefit a child, I'm not spending my time there, because I don't think it's really a story at all. It's probably too selfish. It's probably too greedy. It's probably too, and I'm not going there. So you can thank Kendra Allen for that. So Fruit Punch is her book, writing from a perspective of a child. What are some things, what do you like to read?
Well, speaking of children, I love a good children's book. You know, a Narnia, the Chronicles of Narnia, Harry Potter.
Right.
Those books, I think they're written for children, but when you read them as an adult, you read them, and you're like, oh,
yeah, because they're about this.
This is what it's about.
Yeah, that's right.
You enter in, and I think reading should, in a way, be an escape. You know, bring you back to a place you never knew. And when I read the Chronicles of Narnia, it's almost just, you know, coming home after a long day and just, you know, resting into these words that are so simple, but they convey something so much more beautiful than an 8-year-old can understand. And so these stories that on the outside, you know, are meant for children, bring you back into this space of wonder and excitement for the world you live in. And, you know, I read big books. I read memoirs and nonfiction and all of these big, serious adult books, but it's always the children's books I go back to, because they bring me back to the imagination we lose.
Yes.
You know, that needs, it's going extinct. The imagination is going extinct.
Well, I know.
And so
our imagination's being hijacked by, you know, I could make the old person statement of what's happening in our this distracted world, and we do need books, and we do need expressive writing, as I said earlier, and we can never take that for granted.
Right.
And I think that especially people of faith, we can't let others hijack us away from understanding that the depth of how we better relate to others. And it doesn't even have to be faith books. I mean, we have to study this world that's around us to better understand ourselves and to better understand others.
Hey, you hit the nail on the head.
That's a good way to call it. Yeah. So we got a little crazy out today. Thanks for that. I'll, hope my thing goes well tonight. And what's fun here is this podcast and this journey gets to grow and go from there. And we can quit talking about my book after these first 2 episodes and move on to all the other exciting things to come. You can follow us, A Little Crazy Podcast, on all social channels. But you can also, if you want to make it easy, just go to alittlecrazy.com. Just go visit alittlecrazy.com. It's free. Just put your email address, sign up. You will get downloads and links and information of every podcast episode, plus essays, maybe some surprises written by Phoebe sometimes, myself and others, as we write about this journey of life and finding what all of us want, finding the joy we all want and deserve.